So I have one of my dear friends, Kisena, with me today in this video, and we are going to make a recording for you about the Russian roulette of reincarnation here in Yaldabaoth's realm. And before I get into it, I want to let everyone know that we're going to talk about some triggering type of experiences that we as humans have here. And so we're going to ask that you decide to leave this video at any time that you feel an adrenal response or a crisis coming up in you, because the point of this video is not to re-traumatize anyone. The point of this video is to understand the archetypes in this realm, and that we're basically playing Russian roulette with the archetypes in astrology that magnetize certain events that are part of the programming of this matrix. So just turn off the video if you're feeling triggered, but my friend Kisena and I are very magical, happy, joyful people within the matrix because we know what the matrix is. So I've known Kisena since 2016. In 2017, we did some work together where she was producing the most beautiful children's art for like a magical book that she was creating. And I was privileged enough to be able to read and proofread that book and assist her with the English during that time. And we stayed through this long, wonderful process together of both of us doing our best to be like the 5D light workers of ascension. Okay. And we tried really hard. And we're both musicians and singers and sound therapists and artists, and Kisena does body work, and she also, I would say, she's able to see, she's a seer. So in that way, she's a shaman, just like I am, where she can see the different realms and the different magical beings that we interact with here, and also the demonic beings that we interact with here. So I trust Kisena in her process, because I've been with Kisena during some points in her life which were quite terrifying, that were part of the program matrix here. And she may or may not be willing to speak about that. But what I want you to know is, in this realm, there are so many archetypes that have to do with abduction, rape, assault by a drunken person with a weapon. There are the murder asteroids within this realm. And I want to be really clear again that none of it was karmic. You didn't deserve this. And the guilt and shame that goes along with any of the experiences, you can release. The other thing that might be very triggering for people is the compassion that I have for what I'm going to call the perpetrator. Because here's the important thing. You were playing Russian roulette in this realm. This is Yaldabaoth's realm. Okay, Yaldabaoth is the demiurge of the severed one from the absolute creator being. Yaldabaoth gets to play with whatever archetypes in, like, this is the real estate of Yaldabaoth, this projected simulation. And so Yaldabaoth wants to take as many of us with the demiurge as possible by tricking us into coming back again and again and being bonded to the abuse and the abuser. So Yaldabaoth in the Gnostic text was the severed one from Creator, the Absolute. And Creator, in compassion, said, okay, yeah, go ahead. See if your murder archetypes and your assault archetypes and your rape archetypes can convince these beautiful golden beings to stay in your demonic realm. That is what is going on here. That's what this matrix is. So very often we will reincarnate again, and we will immediately magnetize a relationship with a lover, a guru, a teacher, or some other rapist, murderer person who perpetrates against us, because we magnetically our heart sings with resonance to a frequency of remembering we have bonded to this person before, okay? Those memories may be insertions or they may be real feelings, but the insertions come from a very large repertoire here of technologies that are called the Akash or the Akashic record. One person that I've spoken of on Facebook recently who was a operative of the Akash is Dolores Cannon. So Dolores Cannon lived on a military base. She was a military wife. She lived in Texas on a military base for 20 years. And her husband basically brought people into her environment to do this regression, so-called quantum healing hypnosis, in which any kind of insertion of a record, which you would call your past, which I'm not sure there is a past or a future, it's all happening right now. We're everything, everywhere right now. But she really, in her many books, I think she has 16 books, she said again and again that the reason we need to reincarnate here is that we don't evolve. So that's how I know she was an operative, because the shame and the guilt that the machine elves give at the life review when you leave your body, the machine elves basically appear as light beings and say, oh, you did that with that perpetrator, and now you need to come back and live that out again, and this time that person's going to rape you, or so forth. I mean, it never ever will add up to us evolving here. And that's how I know that military-based operative, Dolores Cannon, was also a recruiter. I call her a recruiter. So she said that she had to call out to the universe to get many pure souls, and all these pure souls would then come here, and there would be 3 waves of these pure souls. There would be these indigo star seeds, and then another wave of star seeds, and then the crystal star seeds, and all of these alleged star seeds. So I see her as a recruiter to this realm, meaning that she's Yaldabaoth's operative to get as many of us here as possible on the real estate of the demiurge, and then traumatize us again and again and guilt us into reincarnating because we didn't evolve. And that's exact quote from her books. There's no one in Yaldabaoth's realm who was from Yaldabaoth's realm. Okay, we are all starseeds, every single one of us. We are all beautiful, golden, magical souls who got either recruited or were investigating and got maybe trapped in this eddy that circles around and around. And I've said that it was a matrix, but now there's another simulation within that matrix, which I believe just circles around and around in what I call the apocalypse code. The apocalypse is happening again. The apocalypse is happening again. And we circle around and around and go in and go, oh, we're great light workers. We've got to help this planet ascend. Right? It's not even a planet. We're in a matrix.
Yeah.
So what I love about Kisana, and she and I have done astrology, asteroids, the journey to the void, she totally knows what this realm is. And she has fun here and assists people to come back to the 0 point by looking internally to what traumas, attachments, entities, beings that are pretending to be light might be in the body. Now, Kisana's chart is also very interesting to me because her ascendant is at Polaris, which is the North Star that then projects through the black sun. Basically, there are videos that I've shared about this from the Freemasons on my blog. So you have to go back and read all my blogs at galacticshamanastrologers.net. But Polaris is this key star that then projects the matrix through something that looks like an inverted pentagram or the Freemasonry tool. And the Freemasons all know that this is a projected hologram. So they're having fun here. You know, they're getting away with whatever they can because Yaldabaoth is, in fact, their deity. Yaldabaoth is not my deity. So what I'm doing here is I'm letting people know what this realm is, to no benefit of my own. I mean, honestly, if you Google me, you know, I'm going to look like a crazy mad woman who is saying that we are not in a God realm, we are in a demonic realm. And that doesn't make good, you know, like employment opportunities or, you know, social experiences where people who Google me are going, oh my gosh, she's a crazy woman. Did you hear what she said? She says we're in a simulation. But for me and for Kisena, we want to hear your story. And I'm going to leave the comments on my YouTube channel because people have been very respectful. Please share your story there so other people can also read your story. And please, if you could avoid private messages to me, because literally if I have 500 views on a video and I wake up to 250 messages in the morning of your very important story, which is very important, it's hard for me to respond with my full heart that I want to respond to. But your story is very important. So if you want to add to the comments on this video, please also tell us your story. That's very important. And Kisena can give you some information about how to contact her also. So let me just make sure I have written out all my notes. I'm mostly a notebook person because I don't know how to do things on the internet so well. But so what I want to tell you, first of all, is that the archetype Nessus and the planetoids of the Centaur group, which have a long elliptical movement between Saturn and Pluto. So Saturn is known as the heavyweight, grim reaper, lord of time, disciplinarian in our solar system. And Pluto's the god of death and hell in the underworld. So the planetoids that circulate in that long elliptical path through Saturn and Pluto's orbit and then come around towards Earth, they're picking up the frequency of Saturn's basically death ray and Pluto's dungeon programming. So when you get one of the Centaur groups prominent in your chart, meaning conjunct your ascendant or conjunct one of your planets, depending on the house, you will either magnetize the type of archetype of rape, murder, poisoning, and different assault type of technologies. I'm going to call them programmed technologies that Nessus carries. You may attract it, or you may be the perpetrator. So Jason of Archaics, who I've discussed before, has Saturn exactly to the minute conjunct Nessus, and we know from his record that he used assault with a weapon on a 14-year-old. He's a sexual offender. Now, it's not that I'm giving amnesty to anyone who has perpetrated offense. What I am doing by saying have compassion in this realm for those beings who are both on the receiving end of the Nessus at planetoid archetype and on the perpetrator end, we are in Yaldabaoth's realm. It is a Russian roulette realm of you might get that conjunct your ascendant. And from the time that you are a tiniest child, people who may not otherwise be perpetrators, and this is the hard part. And I'm not saying it's true. This is not like a written in stone type of thing, but people who may not actually be malevolent themselves because they're in a demonic realm, if that is in your chart, you may magnetize behaviors from people who will assault you, even with a weapon, okay? And there's a video in my playlist that I did on the Persephone archetype, which I have in my chart, with Anaya Sophia. It was called It Is Written, okay? And in that video, which has a lot of views on it, I explained that the children who are human trafficked will always have that Persephone or Proserpina on their chart. And I also explained Lucifer conjunct the sun. Often I've found that people who become prostitutes, particularly one in particular who had Lucifer asteroid conjunct her Scorpio sun, she was used as a prostitute since she was a small child. Does that mean she's evolving from that? Does that mean she deserved that through some karmic sequence? Or does that mean we're in Yaldabaoth's realm, where the Russian roulette of trauma of our solar system and these archetypes could affect anyone, because the machine elves are just trying to get you to be ashamed of yourself and reincarnate here? That's how it works, okay? So the Nessus story, before I ask Kisena to explain a little bit, I might show you her chart. She has let me post her chart. I won't give her birth details, but I'm going to point to where Nessus is in her chart, and transiting Nessus, in which she was involved in an event where someone did assault her. Okay, so you may have Nessus prominent in your birth chart, or you may have a transiting Nessus that moves around your chart and conjoins some other planet or asteroid that then magnetizes something. And in your world, it's all about love, because you're a being of love, but you're trying to make things nice and harmonize and fix things and be cooperative with people. And Nessus magnetizes an assault event, okay, when you're just trying to smooth things over. So Nessus is one of the centaur group that codes itself as rape from an interdimensional being to a woman of earth. So in the book of Enoch, one of the most important stories that Enoch gave us was the children or the sons of the gods came down and had their way with the women of earth, okay? And that whole group created a rape encoded group of the centaur beings. So I've made videos about Chiron and Chariklo. They're also centaurs, but Nessus is particularly problematic because Nessus, as a centaur, part interdimensional, part woman of earth, and then coded as a horse race, was a frolicking, wandering, debauchery group that drank heavily and then raped more women of earth. Okay, that's the basic story of Nessus. Now, in the mythology of Nessus, Hercules, also called Heracles, Hercules, who is this very big, strong son of one of the gods, has a wife, Deianira. And Deianira is fairly jealous because Hercules is having intercourse with everybody, as all these sons of the gods did, and having his way with everyone. And so he decides that he's going to hire Nessus, the centaur, to carry his wife Deianira across the river. So the first part of the archetype is being put into someone's care. You're being cared by someone. And Deianira is going, well, Hercules, why can't you just carry me across the river? Hercules is putting her in someone's care. This is the important part of the archetype, okay? She's supposed to be taken care of by this person. And as she's crossing the river, of course, Nessus, he's coded as a rapist. He rapes her. Now, upon that rape, Hercules, who put his wife in this position, kills Nessus. And in that act, Nessus is dying, and Deianira asks for some of the blood from the centaur because she's going to use it as a, quote, love potion to trick her husband. And she gets this poisonous centaur blood and she puts it on the clothing and garments of Heracles or Hercules, and he dies a horrible death of poisoning. So the other part of this mythology, which I haven't even discussed with Kisena, but the other part of this mythology is revenge from the rape. Now Kisena's nodding her head, so I don't know how much she is able to disclose, and she doesn't have to go into like that many details, but I know from talking to her that these archetypes have played out in her life because Nessus is within a 3-degree orb of her Gemini ascendant. Her Gemini ascendant is exactly conjunct the North Star Polaris, which makes this whole matrix. And one of the theories that I have about this matrix is the most luminous beings who would be able to see through all the tricks here often get the worst asteroid and planetoid archetypes, because, not because I chose this, but because if you consider this Yaldabaoth realm as kind of a prison realm where they want to trauma bond you into coming back again and again, the most luminous, heartfelt, loving beings will often get the scariest archetype, because what Demetra said about my chart is, Lalita, people with your planets usually have psychotic breaks and never make it through and end up in a mental institution. That is a quote from Demetra George, a master astrologer who has written books of the ancient astrology from the ancient Greek, who said, my chart usually with the asteroids that I have would be a woman who would never be functional again. And I would say that that is also true of Kisena's chart. Her chart has got Nessus at the ascendant to the point where if she wasn't such a luminous being, if she could not see through this matrix, she may have fallen into patterns of self-abuse and other issues that caused more trauma bonds to more people. And she may not have had her full consciousness to realize what this realm is, and that there are elves here playing with us, and the elves are just doing their default program of playing with us because that's their default program. I'm not upset with the elves either. We have to realize where we are and not blame it on the elves too. Okay, so Kisena, that was a huge introduction. How would you like to begin?
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing. How to begin? Yeah, well, Nessus, the magnetizing power of Nessus, I experienced, of course, many, many times in this prison go find the exit game. And so I magnetized it as a child, first with some reptilian energetic being that started to rape me during the night. And that went on for a couple of years. But I'm looking back at it, I found a way to harmonize, feel a bit of safety within myself. For I had this cassette recorder on my pillow with soft, very soft, beautiful music. And I would play that during the night, and my mother would just all the stuffed animals around my body, and then the blanket very tightly around me, and then I would sleep on my belly, and that gave me, some safety. That was because we talked about it. When the Nessus magnetizes the program, and it enters your screen and it comes back to you, and I have, thank God, the Harmony asteroid, and there are more, but so I naturally always found a way, even when I was that young, to harmonize it in a way, make it more light for myself. And by the age of 7, it repeated itself, but it was physical rape by an older man, a babysitter, and with a knife, and very scary. But I found the power within the next morning, because we were somewhere. There was a party going on, a family party, and we stayed over at the house of a niece, and that babysitter, that was the guy. And the next morning I woke up, and because he threatened me to not speak about it, with the knife. But I found the power within the next morning to tell my father, just speak about it, tell my father. But my father has this programming of very cold, and he's like God, and he knows everything, the narcissistic program in a way. And so I was like this fantasy lying child. So he didn't took it seriously, and my mother went with that. But so I just stuffed it away. But an event happened, that's like, that's also necessary. But it was like, it was just, there was a program beamed onto my screen with this very big guy with this huge knife, and it was standing at the corner of the street near my parents' house. And when I went out, I could see him, and I became very scared. And I would run inside, and I would tell my father, well, the man with the knife is there again. And my father would go outside, and he could not see the man, of course, because it's what was on my screen. And so, but that memory, I just buried it. And later in life, it came to the surface in 2012. The process started when I went into that program, that trauma. And so my mother helped me with that, because I could see this dog, and I could hear this song, and I could see an environment, and I could see the man from behind. And so I talked about it with my mother, because I always had the feeling, and she helped me with that. So that was beautiful. So we did it together, and thanks to my mother, it became clear where it happened. And then I experienced a night of feeling it again. I could feel the pain in my body, literally what happened to me as that child, when I was that child of 7 years old. And then later on, there was a situation where this horse, unicorn, popped up just next to me, and I started to cry because I was so happy to see him again, finally. And we talked, and he told me that I had sent him away. He told me he walked behind me my whole life here, my whole incarnation here, but I decided to not see him anymore because he didn't help me when I was younger. I was angry at him, and so that is why. But he popped up again, and he told me, well, you're ready, and we need to go now. We need to go through the wormhole, and we need to go to look at yourself when you were 7 years old. So I jumped on his back, and we went through some wormhole, and then ploop, it was like in seconds, not even a second. And I was there, and I was looking at myself as that little child. And I realized in that moment why I couldn't recognize his face, because he was behind me. I never saw his face, and in the moment of the trauma. So so it was heartbreaking, of course. It's all trauma here. So I was totally heartbroken. I was just so sad in that moment. And we went back to which I call my inner world, my inner bubble, love land, you know, where, where I have everything I love is present there. And so we went back to my inner world, my love land, and I called him Snowflake, and Snowflake told me, you know, go into the water to heal, and you place my horn in the water. And he placed his horn in the water, and I was in the waters, which are my own, you know, own waters, and it was just, and all the pain went away, all the sadness went away, everything was just, I felt so much power. It was truly healed fully. And then we talked about it, and then shortly after, what happened was just like it beamed. I always say the moon, that's another story, but the moon is like, I don't know, the incarnation station and library or something, but it was beamed into my consciousness, and there I saw myself raping with a lot of violence the man who raped me as a child when I was 7. You know, so I was just, I was healed, and just, I don't know, the next day you had this you know, past incarnation life, which I was, you know, the predator, and I raped the man who raped me when I was 7 years old. So I was like, okay, so it's karma, I deserved that, you know. It's so but at the same time, I, I I felt so clearly that it was not real. You know, I could feel it was not real. It was not clear. It was not real. And in the period after, um, shortly after, I moved to Hoederemont. You know, lived in the forest, and we connected shortly after. And where was I going with that? Oh yeah. And I was just so relieved being there in the forest, you know, because the forest is my home and my family. So I landed there in the forest, and being in the forest the whole day and just singing songs and being with the animals. And I was just sitting. I had found my favorite tree there, and I would sleep there. And I was just sitting there, and suddenly the whole forest just disappeared. That was and it looked like in the you know, back in the 80s when we had those old tellies, and when it was not working, it looked like that, you know. So I was like, okay. So because I always felt it was, you know, I don't know where we are, it feels like steel, and it feels cold, and it feels not real, but what it is, I don't know. But in that moment, instantly I knew, yeah, it's like a video game. We're just in a holographic mind fuck program, and nothing is real. And so that was just, and that was so, it gave me so much space. And then in that same moment, the day after, maybe I was looking into the mirror, and suddenly I could not see myself in the mirror. So I was like, okay, so I'm also nothing, you know. But it was a moment of clicking, because during other moments of rape, I've experienced more rape. Um, um, I was out of my body and looking at myself, and we talked about it, you know. How can you look at yourself, you know? So what is this body? And you know, it's like something becomes real the moment we focus our consciousness there, and then boom, it's real. But in this realm, or well, in this holographic reality, it's just it's all thought forms. In essence, it's all just a program. Everything is in essence a program and nothing more. And we can, you know, weave through the programs. And sometimes a program has like 5 layers, sometimes 15, sometimes 20 layers, sometimes 2 layers. But we can weave through the program and just make every darkness become conscious of every darkness, and then just pull it into 0 point and align it to the void. And then the magnetizing power of that program, you know, is no longer, it's like detached from everything. So yeah, it becomes calm and peaceful. And that is the work that I have been doing for such a long time. And it's calm and peaceful now. But even even when it's calm and peaceful and I'm happy and I'm joyful and I'm laughing and I'm having so much fun in the Matrix every day. And in 2021, I was also at peace and joyful and happy and feeling great about everything. And I really thought that I brought every program back to 0 point. And but no. So Ness is magnetized again. And so someone I had a relationship with, and a lot of incarnations, you know, that felt real, you know, at the moment your conscious focus on it, it becomes real, you know, the form becomes real, the feeling becomes real. But I don't believe it's real. Nothing is real in that sense. But I experienced so many lifetimes with him, and it was all satanic, rape, murder. And where I was the perpetrator, I have hurt him, you know, like big time, and he me. And but there was passion and there was a lot of love. And I met him at my weakest because I became very sick after a shape-shifting reptilian placed a little black snake program through my yoni, and my head exploded, and I found myself in a dragon realm, and well, in the nothingness as a dragon with a devil dragon. And my body became sick, very, very sick. And in that moment we met, you know, we met when I was so sick and my organs were just, you know, didn't work anymore. And so I had to make that healing journey. You know, I had to go through the landscape of my elements and my minerals to get to 0 point in every program. So it was a gift. Eventually, it was just a wonderful journey. And it was like an attempt on my life, but well, it didn't work, you know. Yeah. And I beat it. But the guy I was with, what I'm talking about, our ways we separated eventually because, you know, it was, he had this huge, when we were having sexual intercourse, you know, he was having this huge chameleon, I don't know, how you call it, yeah, reptilian like shadow being, black being, hanging above him, hanging above us when we were having sex, and it was attached to him, and it was just sucking energy. You know, it was just like he was just sucking the energy. That yeah, but he wanted my energy, and he worked through Marco. Well, I'm sorry, he worked through someone and through him, and but he didn't want to believe it, you know. He didn't want to look at it. He didn't want to acknowledge that being was there, because I talked to the being telepathically, and he was in contract with him. And he needed to have a you know, talk with him and have a conversation with the being and deal with it and work with the program, but he didn't want to do it. So I felt so empty after sex. So, you know, I was no energy left. So we needed to leave each other, you know, go our own separate ways. And that was just like, because he was not, I constantly magnetized with him constantly because he was getting drunk, very angry, getting for my neck, and just out of nothing. And then I was just so much love and so happy and singing and so happy. And then out of, for very small things, just maybe a word or, that you don't understand why does it happen, but I understand it now because it's just the magnetizing power of Nessus that is still out of balance. I was not responsible for all that I am. I was not my own mother. I was not my own father. And I was still in the process of coming home to myself and love myself, 100%. And so, and ever since I'm my own mother, my own father, the child wounding, I feel that's very important also, the child wounding. That's they love to hook on to the child wound and they want to keep the child wound alive as long as they can, and they do everything for it because that child wound has to stay, like work as an antenna so they can hook onto it. But as soon as you become your own mother and your own father, it's safe. It's safe within yourself, and they cannot hook onto you. And then you can just, if there are programs still running, you just, weave your way through it and just make every darkness conscious and bring it to 0 point and stop the magnetizing power of it, I guess, and detach yourself fully from everything. And then and then you enter a very peaceful state, and you just observe and you just, hi. Yeah, love about everything because in essence, it's just a holographic, I call it a holographic mind fuck game because they are so playing with your mind. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and I'm sorry, but I just flow and then I just drift and I go into all directions sometimes. But I was talking about the latest one in 2021 in June when we talked. We met. We separated after and then I don't know, a year and a half later we met, and I was hoping because I heard that he had grown and was doing great things, and I was hoping for a beautiful friendship because we experienced so much together, darkness and light. And so we met and we talked, and it was wonderful. And until he asks me, can we get back together, and I want to go back to the beginning. And I was like, no, that doesn't work. There is no trust. We are just trying to communicate now. And that was enough. That was enough. And the entity just took over. The eyes turned black, and he was on top of me. And yeah, and I was gone 2 times. And my dogs were on the bed. And eventually one of my dogs managed to take him out of balance, So he just lost his balance for a moment, and I could just slip out of him, and I just ran out to the street naked. And I was just living here, for just, I don't know, a few months. So I was like, yeah. But I ran out to the street and I knocked on the doors and the windows, and the police came and they took him, and he's still in jail. So yeah, up until this day. Yeah. So that was my last Nessus event. Yeah. 2021.
Well, I'm going to move my computer over here because it's getting a little bit lighter here in Vermont, and I want people to be able to see. That is such a powerful detail that you've just given us, and there are so many teachings in what you just gave, Kisena, that I want people to feel Kisena when she's speaking, because when I feel her, I know that she can take that darkness and make it conscious. And as many times as she did what I would call healing herself by going back with her spirit animal to her child essence and feeling the pain and the grief, the terror that was there, that is the process that we do here as shamans and as luminous beings of light, is we make the darkness conscious. And then if you listen to what she's saying, that her father could not see the scary man with the big knife because it was not on his screen. This is very important, because the person who was my abuser as a child, no one knew that he was an abuser. Still today, no one knows, no one understands, and he's long passed now, so there isn't any reason to go into that, because it was on my screen. And I'm trying to say this very gently, because when I realized that it was on my screen, that it was magnetized in my chart, because I'm that good of an astrologer, I could see that I was in fact the perpetrator, because I magnetized that behavior from him because it was in my chart. And I cried and sobbed and was overwhelmed with the idea that he became the perpetrator, probably with great grief and suffering in his own soul, that could be the experience that he had here, but that was in my chart. I sobbed that those entities were attached to him to get to me, and that those entities worked through him to abuse me to the point where I could not take off my clothes in gym class to change and put on my shorts. And when I was forced to take a shower, and this is quite emotional for me to say, and the other girls saw my body, they reported it to the gym teacher who asked me to come into her office. And when my mother was confronted with this, again, it was my mother's experience that I found out when she was 65 years old that her father perpetrated against her. And I also found out that my grandmother and all of her sisters were raped in a chicken coop by a drunken father. Okay? So when I've spoken very quietly about my Persephone and Proserpina at my ascendant in my first house, I'm saying that with the complete compassion for the person who was the perpetrator, because it was magnetized in my chart, because I'm reincarnating in this matrix program with layers and layers and layers of technologies and entities and archetypes that hold the contracts here. So if you think that God or the creator or source being, which is love, holds the contract here, you're wrong. The contracts here, all the contracts here, are through demonic entity programming. Okay, so those beings that were attached to your perpetrator were contracted by your chart. And this is the really hard part. And Kisena and I both have dogs in our living room. So the dogs can feel and can see this. Also, the amazing thing about the animal realm, and when I first read Kisena's children's book where she used that same process in her book of the child being able to go with a spirit animal into this imagination land and be whole and pure and calm again, and then come back. She actually, the book was like, and then the child would come back through a doorway and have to go back to school and back into matrix programming. And every now when I think about it, Kisana, when I think about that book,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the epitome of healing the inner child through imagination and coming through this doorway back into matrix programming, but that you are always this pure, beautiful being outside of that matrix programming. What would you say, Kisana? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you're talking about it now, because it's what I did all those years, you know, just being in my own inner world and having these beautiful journeys, and of course the darkness also, and then I would come back into the matrix and I would just sing my songs, you know. And in the book Loveland, Elia learns this song, you know, from the elves, and the elves learn hear the song from the, you know, the rocks and the crystals and the water, and it's the song of Loveland. And then she has to go to school and sing the song there, and you know, and sing the song as much as she can, and teach the song to others. So, and the more who will sing that song, the more will connect to their magic within, you know, and find the doorway to Loveland, and have a safe place here in this crazy holographic mind game. Yeah.
And Kisena also said something very important about the moon. So
Yeah.
I've said in my videos before that the moon is the projector of the wormhole technology of incarnations. Whether any of them were real or not, I don't even know. Because a client that I had just yesterday, he was absolutely sure that he has never even been here before, that he was recruited, you know, like by a Dolores Cannon type as a pure being who would come here, but all kinds of false memories are put upon you when you're here to convince you that you deserved this, that this must somehow be karma. But Kisena, being a seer, meaning that she can see other realms, saw that that moon was actually a technology projecting or imprinting records that may not actually have been her records or could have been her records, in which she was also the perpetrator in other lifetimes. But the healing that we're asking you to consider is that this is holographic. And if you understand the game of this is the creator, the absolute being of love, Eros, that we all are, is allowing this simulation by the severed one, who you could call Satan, which is why Kisena saw a lot of satanic programming. This is Satan's realm. Okay, we're in a mindfuck game, as Kisena said, in Satan's realm. She said it very well. She knows exactly what it is, and it's all a screen. This is all digital. So the elves are digital too. And did you hear when she said she was sitting out in the beautiful forest land that is her beauty, and suddenly it disappeared? Now, my clients who have had that experience of the screen suddenly going like a 1980s TV into static, like back in the 1980s when we were little kids, the TV didn't always get the picture right, or the screen was just like white with little dots, static. That's what this is. This is a screen, and it's your beauty. It's your love land. It's your focus. It's your imagination. It's your thought form that creates the screen. And so therefore, It is quite beautiful, and people have seen my yard and where I live. I mean, I create a really beautiful screen. I'm very I'm a magical person. I know how to sing the songs. I know how to play with the crystals. I know how to be in gnome land. You know, I know how to be a magical being with unicorns and spirit animals that are also here. But ultimately, as I've said in the videos that I've done with Kira on his dark materials, my spirit animals, my dog, my beauty, I'm taking out of here. This is coming with me out of here, back to the void, back to source, creator being, because I am not going to stay trauma bonded to Yaldabaoth, because the game, people are always trying to figure out what the game is. There were some questions yesterday when I revealed Dolores Cannon as a PSYOP agent. She never asked the right question, which is also very telling to me. She was always asking about how we should come here to fix this earth, and pure beings should come here to fix this earth, and that we get trapped because none of us evolve and we keep reincarnating and it's our fault. But she never asked the most important question, which is, what is this realm? What is this realm? This realm is a game that Yaldabaoth is given to play with, to see if Yaldabaoth can convince us to stay with the demiurge. So in the most ancient Gnostic text, Sophia did surround Yaldabaoth to create the first womb environment, which you would call Earth. But then Sophia left. So I want everyone to hear this. She realized that she had enveloped a monster, and that from that, more and more demons were being created. Sophia has already left. And that was in one of my videos where she decided, okay, this is just an endless monster game. So the point of this, which Kisana said, you've got to listen to her several times. This is why I've asked her to do a video with me, because she really knows what this place is. You're looking in the game for the darkness, making it conscious, and then finding the exit. Get out of here, people. Go ahead, Kisana.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is, exactly. That's what the game is. Yeah. Yeah, just go through the programming, and well, the asteroids are just wonderful. So if you haven't had your chart made yet with the asteroid, I highly recommend you do so with Lolita. And because you can, when I look at my asteroids, I just made this sheet for myself with you know, the dark ones and the ones who have the magic and the healing powers, and some of the asteroids have both, you know, or dark and have the healing powers, and I looked at the environment, you know, the environment, my where I love to live, and my character, and if I could find it also in all the asteroids, and the incarnations. So the Greek goddesses, and you know, and Egypt, and the Celtics and the Romans and the Roma, and the Gypsy and the Hopi Indians, and well, so much, and it's and all the all the past lives I experienced here, you know, they I don't know, they sent into my which I feel is the moon. I made this pathway to the moon, and the moon is I hated the moon. I'm going into another direction. I will come back to it later, but I have been hating the moon, the frequency of the moon, the light of the moon. I never liked it, never. And during my you know, 5D and glory days, and you know, and meditating with the Merkaba, and you know, I never went to moon ceremonies. because I couldn't, I cannot connect to the moon. I've always had an aversion against the moon. And during my journey, I stumbled upon a moon worm, like a moon snake, was living in my navel, and but it had to do with my father. You know, I received it from my father. So well, eventually it left, you know. But when it left, I was like, okay, that must have been why I hate the moon. So I was like, well, now the worm, the snake, the worm has left. So, well, the moon, let's do a full moon ceremony, you know. But it's no, it was still there. So I have always had this, you know, this with the moon. And when I was doing that pathway, I was guided, you know, the 23 elements and the 48 minerals were part of my journey this past 10 years, and exploring that landscape. And a part of that journey was also creating a pathway, weaving a new pathway. And I had to align to the moon. And I was like, no way I'm going to align to the moon. You know, I don't want to align to the moon. But eventually I did. I had to, you know. And in that moment, I just could see like, you know, like, I don't know, like a shooting gun with all these beams, coatings, beams, which were the how you call it, the incarnation loops to me, you know. So from that moment forth, I was like, oh, okay, so it's the moon is the incarnation station, yeah, library, something like that, you know. Yeah.
So the aversion that I also have to the moon, and what Kisena is saying, is very like the compassion that I have for a murderer. The moon to me is, yeah, it holds the records. It's the incarnation station in which the wormhole technology shames you into coming back here again to somehow fix the demonic realm, which I'm not in charge of fixing the demonic realm. Sorry, like I'm out of here. I know what it is now. I'm exiting through the void. And Kisena knows that very well. If you listen again, you really should listen to her again, because she spoke about how she took the experiences, but then went to the void. And the void is where I also do this dismemberment journey of like, all that goes on here is holographic. So I go to the void, and there's this peace. There's this reassurance of home, that is actually where we're from. And then we come into the human spacesuit. There's no way that the human spacesuit cannot magnetize what's in your chart. Okay, so the human spacesuit is like a magnet. It really is. And from the time that you're birthed and you take your first breath, that nessus will be moving around the chart. So as often as you go to the void and clear yourself of all of the soul loss or fragmentation that happens to you here, if you heard what Kisena was saying about trying to harmonize a relationship with someone who the programming was so thick that it ended up back in a nessus attack. And I've left her chart over there now, and I have a dog in my lap, so I'm gonna just sit here and not show you. But basically, then I, as an astrologer, can run the transits. If you give me an exact date of an event, I will be able to show you that you magnetized that through your human spacesuit just by coming into even like peaceful conversation with someone. The program will run. That's why. And I also have permission to speak about someone's chart that is one of my students and one of my regular clients who is studying the astrology and is a very regular client of mine. She said I could say this, so I'm saying this. She magnetized Nessus conjunct Juno, which was your transit, Kisena, in 2021. Nessus conjoined your Juno. So in her solar return, which is an imprint, this is different than your birth chart. This is different than your asteroid chart. On your birthday, every year, you will imprint a solar return. And in this client's solar return, Nessus is conjunct Juno. And you know what? She was very honest with me. She said, I'm very attracted to a man who wants to tie me up and rape me at knife point. I'm very attracted to him. And she said, please help me with this. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid I'm going to fly into his city and I'm going to let this happen because it's so desirable in my emotional field. Okay. And because she's my client and I've been working with her for a few years now, I said, look, the point of astrology is to make that darkness conscious and get rid of that poison. Do not go into that playing mind fuck that are the technology programs here. Do not, because do you really want to let someone in some city tie you up and rape you at knife point? And she said, honestly, she does. And I said, okay, well, if you're going to do that, you have to realize that you're the perpetrator. You are the perpetrator. Yep. Because you are magnetizing and coming into a frequency band with the man who's running that program. You actually are not the victim. So whatever happens to you, if you don't come out of that struggle alive, and let me tell you something, this woman is as beautiful and luminous as Kisena is, like a beautiful, talented, luminous woman who really thinks that she's out of her mind. She thinks she's out of her mind. And I said, look, you're not out of your mind. You're in holography of demonic programming that's magnetizing every cell of your body to want to go into assault with a weapon. Do you consciously understand you are in a matrix by the satanic overlord, Yaldabaoth, who will be feeding on that sexual energy? Do you realize you'll be making a contract with the demiurge and letting him enjoy that sexual exchange? This is super powerful, folks, and I told you this was going to be triggering. But you must understand that if you put yourself in a certain place while this is magnetizing in your chart, you are making a contract with the satanic overlord who is going to suck up every bit of your sexual terror. And please do not feel guilty. Do not feel ashamed about that. Do not feel like you somehow are the creator of this realm. You are not the creator of this realm. You are a beautiful, golden, magical, luminous being within a demonic realm where the programs run very painfully. It's about trauma that the Yaldabaoth being sucks up from us. You didn't create this program. So what often happens is we get confused about, like, wait a second. So if I'm the perpetrator and I'm magnetizing, did I create this realm? You did not create this realm. You are inside of a television. Okay. And that television only has this channel, that channel, and that channel. And one of those channels is Nessus's channel. Okay. That's the way I see it. You're on the Nessus channel. Okay. And if you're on the Nessus programming, what's going to broadcast from that channel is victimization. But you didn't create this realm. You are just inside of the TV that is this realm. Yeah. And that's what's really hard for people is they start to associate themselves with the programming in the realm. Yeah. You will never be what's on TV. You are, and that's what Kisena said too. Listen to her again. When you're outside of your body, even when you journey to the void in the complete dismemberment journey, you can still see, you can still hear, because you are not this body, but this body is a meat suit. This body is a meat suit. I have to say, this body is a meat suit. Yes, it's sacred. Yes, it's holy. All things are holy about you. But the meat suit produces certain adrenochrome responses, adrenalized fear responses, sexual responses that the snake beings, the reptoid race, the draconian, the dragon race, they actually eat that. That is what they eat. They don't eat broccoli. They're not cultivating the garden. They're not looking for mushrooms. They're looking for your traumatized sexual energy, because those satanic beings are connected to Yaldabaoth. Those are the entities of this realm that you make contracts with. Woo.
Yeah.
What do you hear, Kisena? What's coming up for you?
Well, it's the body is the map in a way, because through the body we deprogram. Well, we can never fully deprogram ourselves, but we bring the programs into center point, you know? We detach ourselves from the program. So it becomes peacefully in 0 point. And but I have experienced that I can only reach those core essences of the programs through the body. So well, I don't have to touch a body. That's not necessary, but travel in the body. So I travel through the body, through the organs, and I have experienced myself that everything you want to know and everything you want to find, all the layers within every program, you can find it in every organ, all the organs, including the skin. It's the largest organ. It's all there. It's in the body. So they need this avatar, this flesh to, you know, the architect needs this flesh to, you know, run the program.
Wow. What an insight. So Kisena, as she describes to me, is able to see inside of the body. She's done training as a body healer, but she doesn't need to put her hands on you, because as a seer, which I can authenticate that is what Kisena is, she can see that the architect of this program needs your physical body, because everything about your physical body are where the entity is attached to, and then they actually feed from. She told me a very amazing personal story of a client who has the entity in her stomach, and another part of her body is actually, the feminine part of her body is kind of dying inside of her spleen, I think Kisena said, but I don't want to give client information out too much. But so your physical body is what the architect of this realm uses to implant and feed upon for various trauma responses. But if you become responsible about your body and do whatever you can to make conscious the darkness or the entity inside of you, you can get outside of the matrix program. So one of the matrix programs that's running very hard right now is the program of cutting off your gender identity and changing that gender identity. And I'm quite sure, although I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm quite sure this is the next level of programming, is to so incorporate the demonic entities within that your gender frame that you have as, like, I'm a woman, as a female, starts to disassociate. And so more trauma will happen from, say I were to take my breasts off, say I were to change everything about me because I had some remnant of the demonic that happened from those early assaults. Okay. But for me, I've cleared all of that. How did I clear that? Because mostly through astrology, realizing the personal names, everything are in there that I magnetized. So the complete forgiveness, actually, of the perpetrator and the compassion for what happened, both for myself and for that person who had the entities acting through them, is how nothing else can feed upon me, because I'm not storing the assault in my body. I'm not storing it. But, you know, as soon as I have something wrong, I will look into that part of the body and say, what's in there? And I'll actually have a dialogue. Yeah. But Kusena has a very interesting way of doing it through art. And also she's a sound healer. She's got an amazing voice comes through her. By having that dialogue, for instance, with the breast or something, of what is the pain and sorrow in there, and really knowing that this avatar physical frame is used to store those traumas so that the entity can connect through that little lump. Yeah. You understand? Tell us more, Kusena, how you understand this and what you do with it.
Well, I started experimenting on myself when the Hopi asteroid, was very active. I was going through that program. And it started with just short, not too long, but it started with someone connected, and he wanted a soul portrait. So I painted this, I connected to him, and there was this past life with the Hopi Indians, and I was being burned alive on the stake, you know, and I saw my wife. My wife was him, you know, the guy I was connecting to. I saw my wife die in front of my eyes under the knife, and then I started looping back the whole night. I started looping, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop, and it was like there was this train station in the center, and I was looping backwards, and it went on all night, and I couldn't stop it, and finally I felt with my head on the stove. It was in the caravan, and I just felt I felt knock out, and then I woke up the next morning. My friend found me, and I just felt like I felt great and purified and light, and I wanted to eat apples, only apples. So I sent him to the grocery store and get me some apples, more apples, and so I was eating apples. But that was the beginning, and at the same time, I was still I was very sick because of that snake, you know, the shapeshifter placed through my clitoris into my body, and there were parasites all through my body, and my organs were so sick. So I had this Hopi asteroid was being activated, that program. And of course, the darkness, I became conscious of the darkness, but also the gifts that go with the program were present. So I started talking to my organs. That was something that came through. After that experience, I just went sitting because I've tried so much, and, you know, to heal myself, with the shiatsu and things, and eating and vitamins and minerals and everything. So I was like, you know, I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to talk with one organ. And if it takes a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year, I don't care. I'm going to talk with my organ until I know what's happening there, until I've cleared it and purified it and get to the core of it. So, and what I started doing was just placing my active hand, my right hand on the organ, and I would just, you know, talk to the organ, and I love you, and I want to be conscious of the darkness, you know, within, and I want to open the portal, and I want to go travel through, and I want to, you know, bring my light there, and you know, transform it with my love. And so I started doing that, and then I would start, you know, how can I, what sound is needed, you know, to open up, you know, the portal within my, you know, stomach, and then the sound would come through, you know, and then I would ask what movement is needed, you know, to start the movement of the journey, you know, get, and what movement is, and then I would just make one movement with a pen. And just look at it, and sometimes, you know, later on it became visible, but In the beginning, it was just, you know, something. And then I would look and I would place it on my stomach and I could feel something happening, you know, and then I would just repeat the sound that came through and repeat the sound that came through. And then I would place my left hand, the receiver, when I felt, you know, my stomach is ready to talk and show me things. Then I would place my left hand and just, you know, I'm ready to receive, and just show it to me in a way that I can understand in this now moment, you know, through the animals, you know, through my art, whatever I can understand in this now moment, through dream time, or, you know. And I started doing that, and so much happened. I was sitting at the water in the forest every day for hours and hours and working with my organs, and made a lot of art eventually also, because I started journeying with Snowflake, you know, with the unicorn, because he was my navigator at first, through the wormholes, the many wormholes. So he was my navigator. And so I've seen so much in past lives, and, you know, the other galactic realms, and which are also part of this, you know, Yeldoba mind game. So yeah, that was for me the journey of the Hopi, and healing, resetting my organs in a way. I reset my organs because I went to the core. I weaved my way to the core of every program and just, you know, pulled it back to 0 point. And so that was a journey of 4 or 5 years, I think, before I, you know, felt healthy in my body again.
So do you hear everyone listen to what Kisana is saying, is that she is in a self-guided exploration of healing, and that it didn't come from a training necessarily. It didn't come from a guru. It didn't come from a spiritual teacher. It didn't come from the systemic religious texts that we have, all of which I think are manipulation.
Yeah.
But that it was her own quiet process of going within and having a dialogue with the physical avatar, where all of these little implants and interferences are coded or running. But they are not her. They are not, you see, Kisena is working with her body almost like an instrument, like a violin or a guitar or a drum. Listen carefully, folks. Your body is an instrument like a tuning of a flute. Okay, I have a wooden flute and you can move the piece up and down to get a different tune. That instrument, or a drum, I can put it, I can wet the drum and put it next to the wood stove and get a higher pitch, or so forth. What Kisena is doing is she's listening to the tone or the pitch or the sound that wants to come through, that she's asking, you know, how can I relieve or release this imprint or implant or whatever it is in my body. And then she's maybe even using art and moving her hand, and, you know, or you could use a pencil, or you could just use your finger in the air, or you could use paint or whatever it is. And then she's putting that from her own imagination, her own creative process, back on her body to help the body heal. And then she's also using her left hand to receive and use that tone or that pitch, like the fine instrument that you are, to receive whatever healing that can happen in this realm. We are really like instruments, which in my last video I had said I was releasing my tuning forks because I realized I don't want to be tuned to anything like that. You are your own frequency. You are your own healer, and you'll figure out what your body needs just by listening to it and dialoguing it. If you're not sure, you can meet with Kisena. You certainly can meet with me. I don't just do asteroids. I do a little bit of everything, but I do listen to the physical body. I think Kisena's a little bit better of a seer in terms of her ability to see into the organs and see what is there. She's a much more gifted seer than I am. But this is a process in which you are releasing, or what I call, my favorite button is the delete button, all the memories from the hologram. You're just, and the other thing is, so for instance, my father died in a car accident, and for many years as a child, I could still see him, and I had the ability to see all things that had passed that were non-corporal. I could see everything. And at one point in my life, I felt like I needed to meet with the person who was driving the car in which he died. So there's another thing, in a very kind of rational, linear way, you can release these imprints. And I said, can I meet with you? And I found out where she was, and she was quite older at the time. And she said, yes, please, let's meet. We'll go to the diner. I drove 8 hours to go and meet her. And she was crying. She was sobbing when I met her. And she said, I'm so sorry for taking your father from you. And she really repeated that again and again. I'm so sorry. She had held that grief in her body for 35 years. And I hugged her and looked in her eyes, and it's very emotional for me to say this. And I said, you did not take my father from me. I want you to know I'm an astrologer. I'm a professional astrologer. I can see that it was in my chart that my father would leave. And I could also, amazingly, I got his birth records after my grandma and her daughter died, the huge package of photos and birth records. I could see his death in his chart. So I said to her, I love you with all my being. Nothing else could have happened other than him dying very young. Nothing else could have happened but me losing my father, because I have been to other astrologers for me, and they say, oh, it looks like your father left you. It looks like you were somehow abandoned by your father. I would laugh and say, well, yeah, I mean, he died. He died in a car accident. So in a very linear process, unlike Kisana, who then, magnetized another assault from a perpetrator that she was trying to harmonize with, in this case, you could actually just in your mind, not actually drive 8 hours like I did, but in your mind, go to that person and relieve their guilt and their shame about the situation. And when that happened, because we're all interconnected here, the particles and the waveforms that we are all interconnected. I am interconnected to the wood pile. I'm interconnected to the fire that's burning. We are all elementally interconnected here. So at any time that you want to do the release of a situation like that, see if you can have that compassion to release that guilt and shame from the other person. Even if you're doing it in a dream or a journal writing or a song or anything like that, see what you can do to release that person's guilt and shame. Because remember, the elves are tricky. The elves are little tricksters, okay? When that woman, whose name is also in my chart, her name is Carol, when that woman goes back through the life review, through the weird white light projection of the moon, and she goes towards the white light of the moon and gets guilted into coming back here again because she killed my father, you have already released her, because that's how powerful you are. You see, in this realm, we are so manipulated because we are more powerful than Yaldabaoth. And so set everybody free that you possibly can through your love and the love that you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else? Kisana, can you tell people how to find you or find your videos and or any way to connect with you if you want to?
It's beautiful what you said. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, beautiful. Well, I still have my website, and there's a contact form, and it's Kisen's World. Kisen's World at, oh no, www.Kisen's World NL. Yeah.
You put it in when we put this on Facebook, just put your, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. Well, I'm now working with someone in this moment, and it's just I'm not promoting, or just they're being brought onto my path. It just goes naturally, you know. And so but if people want to, you know, connect and learn about the landscape of the elements and minerals within themselves, and the programs that are present, and well, they can connect, of course, and then together we can journey and see how to harmonize and bring it back to 0 point. Yeah.
Yeah. Harmonize. Yeah. You see, when talking to someone like Kisana, just her frequency, you know, I know it's a very strange word to use, frequency, because people associate frequency with the whole 5D false light ascension thing, but you can feel her calm. And what I really wanted to do was, I mean, I'm very grateful that Kisana was willing to be so public about this, is show that there is joy, there is peace, there is love within a hell realm, and there is laughter, and there's your luminosity and your magic, and your consciousness towards knowing what has been dark and has been painful is how we get to this luminosity, because we know where we are and we can joke about the screen.
Yeah.
And Kusena has the conversations of, you know, how was your Matrix day? You know, how was your Matrix day?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all free memes at the moment. You just have to look on the screen and just go to a supermarket, and they're all free memes to laugh about, you know. It's all for free now. Yeah.
The realm is really revealing itself, is what I'm
Yeah.
finding, is that it's almost like Yaldabaoth is so bored with his default programming also, that it's all becoming so right in your face, going, my gosh, it's right there in your face, the program of what this prison type of planet is. And honestly, the ultimate compassion that I have is that I also want to set Yaldabaoth free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yaldabaoth, have you had enough of yourself?
Yeah. 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 Aren't
Would
you
you like
tired?
would you like to close this whole matrix down? I mean, would you like let's just shut it down and go back to the void, my friend Yaldabaoth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because we are so powerful with our frequency of love, we can alchemize everything. And why not Yelderba? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Kisena, thank you. You've been on this call for a very long time. I appreciate your time so much. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Well, just about, I was just remembering that the instrument we were talking about, you know, that the body is the instrument with the frequencies. When the Hopi journey started, and I started the healing journey, and, you know, with the organs, at the end of it, when I almost was to the, in the core of the program, I needed to make the pathway, you know, and it was the 2348 pathway. And the numbers 2348 I received at the beginning of the journey, even in 2012, the numbers, and I wrote it down in my journal. I just let go of it, you know, the numbers 2348. But I needed to work with 2348 and create that pathway. And well, I did it, you know, in the air and with things. But 23 were just the elements. So the 23 elements, the 48 minerals, I came to realize later on, you know, not in that moment, but later, just recently, this year ago. And it's the elements and the minerals. And it's together, it's 72. And in this realm, you know, the way the architecture has created the body and the programs within, it's divided, and so it's yin yang, and we have to get everything to the center, and so it's 2 times, so it's 72, 72, so it's 144 frequencies within, you know. It's like the of frequencies, or but that's the choir within, I feel, you know.
And that's the alchemy of you realizing all of it is within you, because there is the fictional scripture that there are 144,000 original ensouled beings of this realm.
Yeah.
But I see, to me, if there's any hierarchy here, we are still in a slave matrix. So what Kisena has realized, and I would like you to listen to this video like 2 or 3 times so that you don't just listen to our consciousness, but it becomes your consciousness too, that there is nothing outside of you that's going to save you. There is no 144,000 angels that's all fiction in a scripture that was written by Yaldabaoth, believe me. So, you know, like, or don't believe me, I don't care. But if you don't realize that 144 is your alchemy of the choir within you, of the singing of the beautiful luminous being that you are.
Yeah, and you need to, when you've brought everything back to the, you know, the peaceful center of the program, you know, detached, aligned to the void, you know, the core within, it's just the programs you have, the asteroid programs you have within, you know, they start singing together, and it becomes one tune, and it becomes your unique frequency. And we also have the geometry with every frequency within. There's also geometry within, because in my journey, I've seen so much geometry from within that we don't know about here in this. We don't know it. It is all within, and we all have our unique geometry patterns and unique sounds, and it's all within. And everyone who's, you know, source connected, because I do believe we have a lot of players also, but everyone who's, let's call it source connected, is the alchemist and is the magician and can heal him or herself. And you can do it all by yourself, but you just have to kick yourself in the butt and go sit with yourself and go talk to your body. Your body is consciousness. It's the program, your body. And, you know, and stop looking outside yourself, you know, and start believing that you are that powerful, you know. We are all so powerful. Yeah.
You are that powerful. And I really want to emphasize and kind of close with the trauma bond that people have with gurus or messiahs or beings outside of you who are trying to put their geometry or their mantra or their sound technique or their tradition on you. That is a trauma bond, folks. And I've said this to various gurus and mystics that have come across my path who are trying to tell me to do that kind of breathing practice or that kind of mantra. And I would say, look, the truth is not in the practice. The truth is not in all of these externalized practices. It is within. It is only within. And I am the alchemist who just needs to listen very attentively to my own inner music. You are the choir. You are the way. You are the life. You are the light. You are the glory. You are.
Yes. Ah, yeah.
So we'll close. Kisana and I can hang out for a very long time, but we'll close for now. And thank you all so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye.